There we go. We're live. Hello and welcome to True Face Presents The Charlotte Show presents Meet the Guardians. So this is a very special show tonight, in which I am going to chat to hopefully three of the guardians of the 1892 pledge scheme. The 1892 pledge scheme, 1892 pledge.co.uk is, of course, a scheme that was launched by the Newcastle United Supporters Trust about 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks and 1 day ago, to raise money to hopefully one day buy a stake as a fan group in Newcastle United. So the way that that's structured is people are putting in their money on a monthly basis or as a one-off payment. So either's fine. We love the idea of monthlies, but if you want to just do a big lump sum, then that's fine. We've got the money in a separate bank account, and then we have four guardians looking after the money. And so I wanted to, it's your money, it's a big thing. It's not, we want to be as clear and serious about that as possible. So I wanted to do a little Meet the Guardians, the people that are looking after them. Marvin Purian is just sitting there silently, but he is one of the guardians. So too is George Culkin, so too is Warren Barton, and so too is Lee Humble, who's probably the name that you're not as familiar with. Lee's not with us tonight because there's some industry awards. Ian, thank you so much for being here.
Hello, Charlotte. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. Ian and I have already been on this week doing stuff about this mad thing. Now, Warren has just joined us, and I'm going to bring him in, if that's okay, because originally I had structured this slightly differently, but I'm going to bring Warren in, Ian, and drop you. I'm so sorry. I'm a little bit all over the place, but I'll come back.
Don't worry.
Hi, Warren. Sorry, Ian. I'll be back with you shortly.
No, don't do that to Ian. He's just dressed up as well. He's got his
no,
got his
it's all right.
Ian,
no, we can make it look like this is all on purpose, Warren. So,
okay.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, very well. It's been an interesting week, to say the least. Football's won, fans have won, so I'm looking forward to the weekend, which is something that we haven't said for a long time. But yeah, looking forward to it. It's been a good week. So yeah, looking forward to the games.
It's been a crazy week. It's been a very just Sunday night to now, Friday. It feels like it's been about like a month's worth of news and like madness packed into this sort of 5-day period. Well, let's talk a little bit about the pledge scheme and your involvement, and then we can talk a little bit about the week's news, if that's okay with you. I've already given sort of that exposition of what the pledge scheme is and the guardians who are looking after the money. Warren, what was your thought process when you were approached to be a guardian of the money? Did you like the idea of the scheme? What did you think of it?
Well, I go back because obviously a lot of people have done a lot of work over a number of months and years. So this has been something that's been simmering for a while, with people getting involved. And the biggest thing I think for everybody was to get all the fan base on the same page. You're never going to please everybody, but you're trying to get a common goal of where we want Newcastle United to be, where you want the club to be going forward. And we could all just sit back and do nothing and just moan about it on social media or moan about it when we see each other. But people have worked hard to do that. And then when I was spoken to, I said a little while ago, not as long ago as a year or 2 years, but there was a few months back, straight away was immense excitement, which is something that we've not had for a long time. Pride, because I was sick and tired of looking at Newcastle United looking vulnerable and weak. And I wanted to do something about it. I tried as a player to do that. And, as I said, my time at the club and living in the region and knowing how important the fans are to this club. Not sometimes it's different in other football clubs, but not this club. The fans are a big part of it and a big part of the city. It's the heart and soul of the football club. So when the conversation started picking up and getting heated conversations about where we want to go. There was excitement, there was passion, and we haven't had that for a long, long time. Thinking about the team, and then thinking about where we're going, and then thinking about people in the middle of a pandemic that are donating a one-off payment of £1,000, and then people are doing monthly payments of £5 a month and getting behind, and there's 3 or 4 people are doing it. That gave me a sense of responsibility as well, of what I wanted to be involved with. And again, we can't please everybody, but we're doing it in the sense, Charlotte, if God forbid the worst scenario, and it can happen, don't think it can't, because it's happened to other football clubs, that they get relegated, the owner says, you know what, this ain't for me, I'm out of here, and now we're going liquidation. We wanted to be, we the fans and the club wanted to be in a position where if that did happen, we want to be able to try and save the football club and be a part of it and have a say in the club. Hopefully, if the new ownerships or new owner comes in, whoever it may be, they will have a voice. They will see what this fan base has been able to do, and to put together all over the world, not just in the North East. I'm talking about all over the world that have put their hard-earned money into something that they believe in. And again, the worst scenario, if this ownership comes in and saves the day, this money is going to go to charity, and not charity, or it's going to go to the region, the North East, and go to a great cause. So that was another plus for me to be involved with. But the bottom line is, I wasn't going to sit and just accept what I'm going through, and what's happening, and not do anything about it. It's not in my nature. It's not in the people in the North East nature to sit back and accept it. And you've seen the response in a matter of weeks. And I just say quickly as well, you've seen the response about this Super League. Fans are important. You know, we get caught up about money, corporate. So we, Newcastle, started this a few months ago, and a year ago to get it going. And then when, their football club is being took over by someone that's got no interest in them at all, the fans come out. Chelsea fans, Man United fans, Spurs fans, Arsenal fans. Newcastle's no different. And they started it by, we've got an owner that doesn't seem like he's engaged with the fans and doesn't seem like he's got the best interests at heart. So that's why this has happened. And then it's like quite ironic that now these other teams think, well, their owner's going to go off. Oh, you know what? The fans are important. And out of a pandemic and a situation we're going through, the fans have a big say. And it's a lot of pride. And that's why I've got a smile on my face, because not only what the pledger's been doing, but you've seen other fans, and they must look at Newcastle and say, we don't want to go through that. We're gonna get behind our club. You're not going to take my football club and take it across the world, and I'm not going to be involved, because the owners don't really realise about the people in the community and what it means. Lower league, whether it's in the Premier League or lower league. So to be part of this is, and it just so happens that it's off the back, and then it happens with the Super League that comes along, because the outpour that you've had over here in the States was phenomenal. That you've seen Chelsea, Man United. It was on the news, which you never ever get.
That's amazing.
About it.
Yeah.
So to get that response was phenomenal.
I mean, like, hearing you talk about it and with the passion that you do is just such a joy. So I'm so grateful that you are on board, and it's so nice. And I know that there's lots of people watching who are concurring with you. It just goes to show, Keith saying here, that it just goes to show how important us, the fans, are. I mean, you're absolutely right. And I think as well, something that that you touched on there is just this sort of like ambition and enthusiasm and positivity, which is something that I don't think a lot of people have felt about Newcastle for so long. So it's really, really like strange, but also very nice to feel that kind of like positivity and excitement about something to do with Newcastle United, which, we haven't for a long time. NUFC Opinion Blog, which is run by a friend of the podcast, Dan Wales, says, obviously it's a long way off, but realistically, how big do you think this project can grow, Warren, especially given such a positive start and the power of our fan base? It's a good question. A lot of people are saying, like, you're not going to do it, you can't do it. But as you touched on there, I think, Warren, other clubs in Scotland, Hearts have, like other fan groups, maybe lower down the leagues, but other fan groups have stepped in and saved their money. How big do you think this could be?
Well, we was lucky enough to have a conversation with the people at Hearts, what they did, and they raised £15 million to do that. I believe. I think that was correct. And when we had the meeting, it's up to our fans. It's up to the people what we want to do, and that's where the monthly income is important. That it's not just one-off payments, which are magnificent. It's great, but this is a long-term plan. This is something that's going to take time. Obviously, the goal was 3.5 million, because that gives you a percentage of being able to put some money into the club. So that's the goal. Knowing what the fans are like, and we know it's a difficult time for everybody financially, but the impact that we've had immediately, if we can generate 50% of that for the next 6 months, it starts building and going forward. So knowing the people like I do and the fan base is that it can emulate what we've seen happen, that we can get to that level. And then at the end of it, if someone does come flying through the door, we've taken us to the promised land and we can compete, and we've got a voice on the board, and they're going to interact with the fans and understand how important the fans are to the football club, and the football club is to the fans and the city. That money then will go out to charity. And being part of the Guardians with the 4 or 5, 6 of us, whoever it is, we'll have that say of where it goes. So there's a lot of positivity about it. And George made a really point that's hit home for me, and it probably tell you the story himself. But for so long, he's gone into St James, and he's lucky enough. He's a journalist. He goes and watches all the games, and we have to watch it from TV. But he goes to the stadium with no emotion. It's just going to watch a game. Now, how sad is that a Newcastle fan is not going to St James's Park with his chest bouncing, with his heart's going to come out of his chest, and he's got the young kids with him that are getting ready to the game, and they're getting there early. Dad, I want to see, Almiron getting warmed up like I used to do with Alan Shearer, and see him, and not have that feeling throughout the week that, the team's doing well. It's only Monday, but I can't wait to get to the game. I can't wait. It's Thursday. It's Thursday night locally. We're having a pub in Wallsend. Right, what time are we meeting on Saturday morning? What time are we getting down there? I hope Barton don't suck again. I hope he has a better game. All them things that we used to have.
No one ever said that.
There was a few times, but to have that feeling again. And George said it. The only time they've had that is when we've gone there to give to the food bank, and to go to St James's Park feeling that I've had a positivity. I've gone to this stadium looking that I've done something well. We want to do that to the fans, that when they do go back, they feel, you know what, we've given a monthly income. We've got to this target. We're getting higher in the money. I'm doing something good. Now, hopefully the players and the club understand that. And that's going to be the message throughout, because that's what we want. And that's what we want to get back to the club. We want the owners and the players to realise what it is, because it was ingrained in me, whether it was Kevin Keegan, Peter Beardsley or Sir Bobby Robson. It was ingrained in me. I'm obviously not from the area, but I got into it, and I loved it. I loved having that responsibility.
I think
the final whistle will go, and you can hear them singing and shouting and cheering. You think they're going to have a good time tonight. They're going to have fun, and you have that responsibility. Some people it suffocates, but a lot of us, the likes of Rob and Alan and Shay and Gary and people like that, they throve off of that. They relished that opportunity, and there was a few good nights that we had.
Yeah, I bet you've got some stories as well. Although we'll try and keep this. Maybe I'll coax you back on another time to tell some stories. But I grew up in Newcastle, and my dad's a Newcastle fan. That's why I'm a Newcastle fan. He was brought up in Bedlington up the A1, and he used to take us. And I remember just like you say, this kind of he's holding my hand walking up to the East Stand, and the grip's getting tighter because he's excited, and he'll push me through the little turnstile because they're just tiny, and he's just so excited. And I've gone with him. He gave up a season ticket after we were relegated in 2009 because he was so pissed off with Mike Ashley's ownership and the way that the stuff was going, and then the way that Alan Shearer was treated. And we get the odd ticket now. We just go now, obviously not in the pandemic, but when you could. And he's just less, you're right, he's just less excited about it. It's just okay, well, we're going because we always used to, and that's nice, but it's not it's not like getting there early or like being really like buzzed about it. And you're right, that is not there for everybody, and it could be. So it's really nice to be part of something that would hopefully bring that back. I would hope.
Yeah, there was an excitement in the air. You know, even when we used to get there early and St James's would be empty, you could just feel the electricity in the air. And Bobby was like a 21-year-old kid skipping around in the team meeting, you know, and that emulated to us. And you know, that's what we want our football club. So that's when it hurts me when a manager comes out and says, well, my brief for my ownership is just to survive. Now, whether that was your brief at all, but Bobby, when he come in after Ruud Gullit, didn't just say, well, this is a building game, we got to change this here, and you know, this is going to be a long term. He went, you know what, Alan, you face the goal, we get Kevin Gallagher in, we're going to finish 8th, 9th, 10th. The following season, I'm going to bring Laura and Robert this one in, and we're going to go in the Champions League. That's what we're going to do. Whether the ownership, Freddie, whoever said, well, we've got to balance, so Bobby weren't going to do that. So Bobby wasn't going to dictate it by, well, he was going to manage and get the best out of people. He squeezed as much as he could out of me. Yeah. And he said it to me. He said, I can't get any more out of you. And he did that. And then when he was ready, off you go. We've got Aaron Hughes coming in. And then off you go, Rob Lee. We've got Jermaine Genius coming. Off you go. This one, we've got Laurent Ribert coming. And that's what the football club is about. It's about squeezing as much as you can out of everybody to give it to the fans, to give it to the football club, to go into a stadium where the excitement is there. I mean, as I said, some people was petrified to go to play in front of it, but we loved it. And you've got to embrace that. And that's why the ownership at the moment, how can you not want to be part of that? How can you not think, you know, and I said it before, so I think he was badly advised at the beginning. And then it snowballed. Like every manager that comes in, there's a turnover of players. No one's got an identity. No one thinks about what Newcastle want, what the fans want. It's just what we want. This is how this football club is about the fans. Period. Forget anything else. It's about the fans.
You can tell you've been in America because you said period there. That's a very American. No, I'm totally with you. And I think after this weekend, you can really see how much the fans mean to clubs up and down the country, or don't mean to some of them, but how important they are in the voice of them, and how big it can be. I think I said it to Ian, who is waiting in the wings, for those of you who've joined since I started this week, that there is a vested interest from owners of football clubs to make fans feel like they don't have any power to change things, but we do. You saw it this week, and that's why I think that the pledge scheme is so timely and so important, because we really do have the power. And when we unify and get together and make our voice heard, that's when change starts to happen. So I really personally obviously believe in this scheme so very much, and I'm very grateful that you're on board as well, Warren, because you just speak so well about it, and so many people have identified with what you're saying. So it's a joy to hear. I will let you go soon, because I did promise you only about 15-20 minutes, and I want to bring in other people. But Keith Whitfield says, any predictions for the game tomorrow, Warren? Because we're playing Liverpool at midday here, so midday.
Yeah, it's a tough game for us, but we definitely go into this game with a lot more confidence, particularly with the performance that we've had in the last couple of games. It's a shame we're talking about surviving, but that's where we are at the moment. But I think we can go into this game, and I think, like we've all said, when we are on the front foot, when we are aggressive enough, we can play. We've got players that can cause teams problems. So Liverpool are not the force they was. They look a little bit vulnerable. They look a little bit sorry for themselves. So let's go and have a go at them. Don't do what we did at Sheffield United and let Liverpool get on the ball and dictate it, because we're going to get beat. Let's have a go. And I think whatever happens, if that is the scenario that we lose, win or draw, we'll be happy, because we want our team to have a go. I know it sounds an old cliche. It doesn't mean we're naive and everybody attacks forward, but I'm looking forward to the game. I'm looking forward to seeing the players. If I was a player now, regardless what they might be saying to me, how we're going to set up. No, I'm thinking I want to have a good game against Liverpool. I want to beat these, because it would be a big step forward. And karma's always a great thing. And I believe in fate as well, is that the pledge was started a few weeks ago. and it's quite ironic. Then you've had the Super League thing that's kicked on, and it just gives that momentum and that feel-good factor. And then going into another game, because I think if we get a good result, I think we're safe anyway. I think Fulham are down, and we've really, we got the results when we needed against Burnley, and then obviously against West Ham. That was, was a big win for us as well. So it's maybe demoralised them. So I think a healthy result, just a strong performance. Let's have a go at them, try and beat them, and then get ready for the next game.
Totally with you. I think even if we come away from tomorrow with no points, as long as we've given it a good go, that's what we want to see, isn't it? Like a team with drive and some excitement and some like belief in themselves, because we haven't seen that for a lot of the season. So very excited. All right, Warren, I'll let you go. Thank you so much for joining me your morning. So enjoy the rest of your day in sunny California. And take care of yourself, and fingers crossed for tomorrow.
An absolute pleasure. I'm going to watch anyway because I want to see his outfit, because he didn't look like he was dressed up to kill. He's looking sharp. He must be going straight out after this.
Well, I'll add him. Here you go. Ian, are you heading out?
I wish I was, but I'm not. No, I'm just trying to look smart for the telly, Charlotte. That's all.
Telly. Oh well, I'm very grateful. Actually, I've put a little shirt on. It's a bit of a pirate shirt.
I didn't realise he scrubbed up so well. I didn't realise he Hey, please don't tell me you got a pair of shorts on underneath that though. You got the full set on.
Amazing. Warren, I'll drop you from this, but feel free to stay in the wings. You can watch. Thank you so much for your lovely words, and we'll speak to you again soon. Take care. Hi, Ian. Thank you so much for your patience and for letting me just boot you out there before Warren came on. We have Tony Hunter, and I will talk to you a little bit about the pledge and your experience as well. Tony Hunter saying, I love the way Warren says we. John Henry in his quote unquote apology yesterday constantly said your rather than our or we. He said your club, all of this stuff. So very telling, I think. Some very telling apologies from clubs all over the place. Over the past week. Okay. Hi, Ian. Happy Friday night to you. Ian, as one of the guardians of the 1892 pledge scheme, why did you say yes? That's my question.
Well, I was honoured to be asked, to be honest, Charlotte. I mean, there are lots and lots of Newcastle fans out there, and, to be one of 4 people asked by the Trust to be one of the guardians to basically safeguard the money the Trust and the pledge raises. I was actually honoured to be asked, and I think it's a great responsibility. And of course, what we need to do, though, is to make the pledge scheme a raging success, because I think this week has actually showed us exactly what power in football is about. And the thing is, we don't know what lies in store for Newcastle in the future, for Newcastle United in the future. And if things go wrong, we will be ready with a pledge scheme to pick up the pieces should things go badly wrong. If it all goes right and we're taken over by a friendly sort of philanthropic
billionaire,
billionaire, yeah, absolutely, who'll invest in the club, invest in the playing staff, invest in the coaching staff, invest in the future through the academy, etc. Well, that's great. And then what's the worst thing that can happen? The money that we've raised then can be used for charitable causes here in the northeast of England, where, by the way, it is significantly and muchly needed.
Yeah. And Ian, you know that fine well, being as you are a member of Parliament for Gateshead. So you see sort of firsthand what needs to change in the region or what needs support in the region. Of course, I'd love to see that come from central government and us to be able to just invest in our club. Daniel Marshall has a political question while Ian is on. Why do the football world just seem to be waking up to the fact that socialism in football has been overrun by capitalism now? I don't know that it's just waking up, but it's been a capitalist sort of machine for a very long time.
Yeah, well, it has. I mean, you know, when I first started watching Newcastle in the 1960s, you know, the ownership of the club was in the hands of a few sort of local business people, and the names that were, you know, that were there all of the time: Rush, Braithwaite, Westwood, you know. You know, people who are been around long enough will remember those names: Stan Seymour, etc. So, you know, there was nothing socialistic about that back then. You know, they looked after themselves and guarded the football club through it. But I think what's actually happening now is because of this occurrence this week with the so-called Big Six involvement in a European Super League misadventure. The government now have had their hand forced in terms of bringing forward their fan-led review of football governance. I mean, when I wrote to the Prime Minister about this back in November, I think it was, I kind of got a very dismissive reply sometime in late January, early February. But now, with the Big Six and the uproar, Monday comes and Oliver Dowden, the Secretary of State for Department for Culture, Media and Sport, says we're going to have a fan-led review. Now, I don't think they were planning to do that with that same urgency, but they've been forced into it by the reaction of the football world and fans all over the country. Because there's one thing that Conservative MPs understand, like all MPs, and that is when fans are angry, that means constituents are angry, because fans are constituents as well. Yeah,
it's a good point, and also something I wanted to talk about with you a little bit. Ian and I did for the Trust did a live YouTube show just answering questions as it literally like crumbled to the ground on Tuesday night. Sort of as we were live, things were Chelsea were pulling out, Man City were talking about it. I joke that we should just stay on for hours and hours and let it just completely fall. We have had a question about punishment for these Big Six, quote unquote. Plenty of talk about punishing them, but that affects the fans. Why should fans be punished? And what can be done to the owners of this disaster idea of a cartel and this sort of Super League? I get the point. I suppose, you know, a points deduction or a fine is going to ultimately affect the fans. But I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think the way in which football have managed this historically has been very, very poor indeed. You know, to punish clubs for the misdemeanors of a previous regime, which quite often in these cases no longer exists, has been historically, I think, a bad idea. Certainly, it's been done to Gateshead, for instance. You know, the misdemeanors of a previous owner, and I'll call him an owner, but the previous owner, and then the fans-led consortium take over the club, and then the fans consortium's punished for the misdemeanors of the previous owner, and that just doesn't seem to me to be fair. But these owners haven't gone away; they're still there, and something needs to be done, because the actions of these owners and these clubs under their ownership has actually damaged or attempted to damage the integrity of the competition in which all 20 clubs are playing. Now, it might have reinforced and strengthened the integrity of that competition in a backhanded sort of way. But what they were hoping to do was to damage the integrity of that competition and break away as 6 clubs and leave 14 clubs to manage in some sort of way. But of course, what they also wanted was to have that cake and eat it. They wanted they wanted the cake of the £300 million golden hello to the European Super League and the ongoing television revenue from that European Super League. But they also wanted the English Premier League to alter its competition and still for them to benefit from the TV revenue from the English Premier League as well. Well, you know, I'm afraid to say you either do one or the other, and the English Premier League would have to survive without them. But the thing is, you see, you know, if you think of the sleeping giants, I mean, you know, we've always regarded ourselves as sleeping giants as Newcastle fans. But I mean, the sleeping giants which exist further down in the pyramid, it would be an opportunity for some of those sleeping giants to come to the fore, to get promoted, you know, to get the benefits of the television revenue, you know, and possibly replace those clubs in the English Premier League situation while they were off doing their European adventure for 15 or 23 years or whatever it was, depending on which paper you read.
I don't think it would have lasted that long. I'm just delighted that it only lasted 72 hours, to be honest. So, Ian, what do you, I mean, it's hard not to look at what happened this week and not relate it back to the pledge, although I don't want to be kind of exploiting this sort of mad week of news to say, like, give us your money. But I think it did highlight the power that fans have. It really did. The uproar came from fans, from pundits, from journalists, but crucially fans, people outside clubs that never really get involved. They wouldn't let the Chelsea team bus into the ground on Tuesday night. Yeah. Do you think do you feel encouraged by that? Do you feel like that gives us some momentum here?
Well, certainly the action of fans through this week has made the hierarchy of the game take notice. And now, of course, because of the government insistence on this fan-led review, but of course, we've got to make sure that the framework for that fan-led review is right as well. It means that they're going to have to carry on taking notice. I think the Premier League have actually handled a lot of this in the lead up to this, not very well themselves, but I think their hand has been forced in order to defend the competition which they run. But I think it's been encouraging to see the reaction of fans at the 6 constituent clubs themselves. And I think the fan reaction at those constituent clubs has been really encouraging in terms of how we want to see football run in the future. And I think one of the encouraging things about this as well is when asked, leading politicians in the government have not ruled out the German-style model where the fans have a sort of golden share in each club. So from that perspective, if the review leads to that, well, great. We might not actually need the pledge fund, but we can't take that risk. We've got to be prepared for any eventuality because we don't know, what this will actually lead to in terms of the value of football clubs as well. I've mentioned before, and I mentioned the other night, Mike Ashley values Newcastle United at a particular level, if it's 305 million or 350 million or 300 million. We don't know exactly. That's sort of commercially confidential. But he values it around that ballpark figure. But the thing is, something I've said often is, the value of an asset is only what someone else is willing to pay for it. And, Mike Ashley has got this artificially sort of thought up value, what he wants for the club. But if he can't get that, if the club won't generate that in terms of a sale, or if the revamping of the Premier League and football in general, following a fan-led review, might mean a significant market correction in terms of the value of football clubs. So we have to wait and see. But in the meantime, we as fans, while always hoping for the best outcomes, we need to be preparing for the worst. And that's what the pledge scheme is all about. It's preparing for an opportunity, should one arise, to buy into the club, should there be a change of ownership, but also should something really nasty happen, like a relegation, might not be this season, but it could happen subsequently, well, we would be there to rescue the club. And wouldn't it be dreadful if we got sort of 2 or 3 years down the line and having to be in a position to try and get fans together to rescue a club and not having done any of this? So let's actually work towards that, and in an incremental way, hopefully getting donations from Newcastle fans from all over the world, but certainly from the northeast of England, and those regular pledges to build up that fund the way in which Heart of Midlothian fans did in Scotland.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about being proactive rather than reactive. You can't bring anything to the table if you in this world and in this sort of football world, money is going to get you, get your foot through the door, not ideas, unfortunately. Like, oh, we've got an idea to raise some money. If you've already started that and you've got some money behind you, then people are going to have people who want money are going to have a conversation with you. Interesting question from Joseph Gardner here, who is based in Oregon. He says, what can Americans do to stop the efforts of the quote unquote big six in the future, besides donating to the pledge, which I've already done, / plan to contribute more? Thank you, Joe, for donating. It's a really good question, because a global eye on all of this it has to be a powerful thing too, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the thing which strikes me of this is American influence has obviously been important in driving this. I mean, Fenway Sports from the Liverpool ownership perspective, the Glazers from Man United seem to be heart, front and centre of this. And of course, it seems to me that they were looking very much at a kind of franchise style, non-shifting competition. So a dozen clubs with others who would come and go, depending, with relegation into a European Super League. But the 12 who established it would be in a protected position. Well, from my perspective, that kind of defeats the object, because one of the beauties of football is the idea that clubs can progress. I mean, we've just had Warren on earlier. Now, Warren played for Wimbledon, before he played for Newcastle. And, Wimbledon started off in non-league football not that long before they were winning an FA Cup and, getting into the top league in English football. So it just shows you what can actually happen when you haven't got those static structures. And it's exciting. It means everyone can dream. I mean, I'm still dreaming of winning a domestic trophy, and I was 64 on Wednesday. So but I mean, but also, I don't think we've done enough to question the premise of the big six. Let's not forget, by the way, Newcastle United have won the league championship in England more times than Tottenham Hotspur. Now, we might not have done it since 1928, but we've actually won it 4 times. Tottenham have only won it twice.
Yeah.
We've won as many European competitions as Tottenham Hotspur. They won the Cup Winners' Cup in 62, 63, and we won the Fairs Cup in 68, 69. So we've won, but they're in the big six, not having won a league championship since 1961. Why? Because they've got a nice stadium. Is that the qualifier these days?
It's
anybody can
nice.
do.
It's just big.
It's better than many. I mean, I mean, well, Charlotte, I've been to Watford, and I've been, yes, and I've been to Goodison, and they're not great, are they? I mean, there'll be lovely grounds to play in, but they're not great from the fan perspective. I mean, the old Wembley, from a fan's perspective, was an absolute dump. The old Wembley, it was an absolute dump from a fan's perspective. I mean, so having a nice ground doesn't make you a big club. And all that's happened there is there's been some schmoozing going on, and some people have got friendly with each other and got themselves together, and they've had a limited amount of success finishing in the sort of top echelons of the league. But what have they won recently from a domestic perspective? So I question the whole premise of the big six in the first place. I mean, were Man City in the big six 30 years ago? No. Certainly no. But Leeds might have been.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, that's, and 25 years ago when we were finishing second, and 20 years ago when we were finishing second under Bobby Robson, we would have been in the big six probably then. We had a big ground, bigger than most of clubs that are in there now, probably with the exception of Man United. So, these things ebb and flow.
Yeah.
And no club has got a God-given right to be at that level all of the time.
It's just very arrogant, isn't it, of the sort of six who pick themselves. That's one of the things that I find the most egregious. I think I just keep using the word egregious, but it seems like the right word. Ian, I am going to thank you so much for coming on. I've got one more person, one of the other Guardians, waiting in the wings, and I could see him nodding away when you said that you said somewhere was a dump. Wembley was a dump.
Wembley was a dump. Well, Charlotte, I hope that people who are watching tonight will get one thing from my contribution. I actually care. I really do care.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know that you do, and I think it does come across, and I'm so grateful to you for spending time with me this Friday night, and then also for agreeing to be one of the Guardians of the 1892 pledge. If you haven't yet donated, please do consider it. We are all here to answer questions as well if you have them. But Ian, thank you so much for your passion and your words tonight after such a crazy week in the footballing world. And
Charlotte, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
And here's George. Hi, George.
Hello.
There's Culkin George on the screen.
Yes, it does.
Okay, that's good. It's your name. Thank you very much for joining me your Friday night as well. And you've been waiting in the wings there for a little bit, watching and agreeing, presumably. But yeah, thank you. I didn't want to keep you waiting any longer.
No, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. It's just I love listening to Warren, obviously for kind of obvious reasons, but I love listening to Ian as well. He's a great MP, and it's just so good that he's involved in the pledge as well. I've been lucky enough to have a pint with Ian in the Irish Centre, which is fun, and he's very right about Wembley. The old Wembley was a dump. It's interesting that you mentioned Wimbledon and told that sort of fairy tale story about Wimbledon. Climbing up the leagues and then winning the FA Cup final and doing so brilliantly. Of course, Wimbledon became one of England's only franchise clubs when they moved to Milton Keynes, much against the wishes of their own fans. And, that's precisely the kind of thing that shouldn't be allowed to happen in football. But yeah.
And the kind of thing that we hope that the fan-led review and things like that will help to safeguard against, I think. We've got some questions. We got a question in from Tony Hunter while Ian was talking, but I think it might be one we can tackle, George. Do you see the Super League as a natural progression from the Project Big Picture power grab from last year? And before that, the objection from members of the Big Six to the takeover. So there's two questions there. I definitely personally see this as like a sort of continuation of Project Big Picture last year. I think that was a kind of warning sign that something was in the works. What about you?
Oh, it's been in the works for decades. Yeah, it's been in the works for decades. I mean, you have to remember that the Premier League is a breakaway league in itself. So we shouldn't be surprised that after the success of that those breakaway clubs or, versions of those breakaway clubs would be prepared to do it again. And, I think the Premier League is so dominated by money now. We have this ludicrous situation, which it's one of my kind of bugbears, that the self-titled richest game in football, richest game in sport, isn't the FA Cup final or the World Cup final or the deciding game in the Premier League or the Champions League final. It's the playoff final, the Championship playoff final to get into the Premier League. And money dominates everything in the game now. And no, it's not surprising. I mean, who'd have thought that rampant capitalists might not really care very much about their own clubs or their own fans? I mean, it's astonishing, isn't it? And yes, and they'll be back. They will be back, and they will try it again. I mean, they've absolutely had their knuckles wrapped. I hope it's more serious than that. I hope, the fact that this review into football comes up with some really substantive answers, but if they're not checked, they will be back. The takeover question is an interesting one. It certainly puts some perspective into what Amanda Staveley said when everything fell down last year, when she blamed a couple of clubs for briefing against them. I mean, I just find it deeply ironic that those 6 having been so, I mean, I'm not trying to sort of make a takeover kind of point here, except to say that the Premier League has just been utterly undermined from within by its own six, the big six, the top six, whatever you want to call them, and they've absolutely shafted their own organisation, which they're, that they sort of protected Newcastle, or Newcastle's protected prospective owners from last year. Yeah, definitely a bitter irony there.
Yeah, and last year we were told, oh, 6 clubs are blocking this, or 6 clubs have made a scene about it, or whatever. And part of me, I mean, a big part of me believed it, and a big part of me didn't. Like, of course not. Like, there has to be. But now it does seem, I don't know, I don't trust any of it now. I don't trust any of it.
And they want it for themselves. They don't want to lose, or if they do lose, they don't want to be punished for it. And it's so hilarious that Spurs and Arsenal, I know Ian was talking about Spurs just before, very, very amusingly, but these teams that are 7th and 9th in the Premier League at the minute are funnily enough voting for, or being in favour of something that absolutely protects them. It's hilarious. And yeah, well, come on, West Ham, and come on, Leicester, for the rest of the season. That's what I say.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of people calling for these clubs to be like, fuck them, let them leave, like get them out of the Premier League. If they don't want to be here, we don't want them. There was that kind of response. There's this dock points kind of response. There's that question earlier about, well, wouldn't that punish the fans? And it's kind of not the fans' fault, although somebody said clubs need punishing, like fans will have to accept that.
Yeah, I mean, if you look, sorry to interrupt, if when bad things happen to football clubs, they get fined, or they get deducted points. That's never, if it's to do with the running of clubs going into administration, or whatever. It's the clubs get punished for it. Is that ever fair on fans? No. Right. But you also can't make an exception just because these clubs are big and have got shitloads of money. And I mean, do I want to see punishment? Well, I think it's good that in short-term steps, executives from those clubs have been sort of taken off Premier League, have been taken off Premier League committees and things like that. Mm-hmm. I would like to see just a redistribution in the Premier League. I would like the government review to have teeth, and to do the kind of stuff that we're talking about with the pledge.
Absolutely. And Ian and I talked about that on Tuesday night as well, because it would be very easy for this to kind of be a box checking exercise from the government. They put this in their manifesto, but as Ian has said earlier, they kicked the can down the road several times. Yeah, we'll do it. It's happening because of this horrible thing that came out on Sunday night, that I don't think that those 6 teams, Alex from the podcast was talking about a podcast he'd listened to with Miguel Delaney, who said these teams and these owners expected pushback from fans, and they expected people not to like it. What they didn't expect was any kind of government intervention, and the government saying, well, we'll stop it at a legislative level. I do think that we have to keep an eye on this fan-led review as fans, because it could very easily turn into something that just goes either on and on and on, or is just concluded with no real change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. And I think if Newcastle have taught us anything in the past 10, 14 years, is that we can't rely on anybody else to do it for us, which is kind of the whole point of the pledge. And I do think the same thing applies to what's happened this week as well. I mean, it's been brilliant seeing fans respond in the way that they have, and this whole sense of unity. But I think we have to sort of grasp this moment for ourselves. And if the government do the right thing, if it's a review that actually sort of tackles these really serious sort of serious points and serious issues, then great, I'd be delighted. You would sort of think that, I think part of it this week is because the government have recognized that that this is a kind of easy vote when, or it's a popular topic for them to get involved with. But this government, previous governments, they haven't shown much interest really. And so I one of the reasons I wanted to be involved in the pledge scheme is that sense of being part of something and doing something. And so I do think it's down to ordinary people, to individual people, to make this moment count. I think that's why the pledge has had such a great response so far, and fingers crossed that carries on. It's about doing it for ourselves, because nobody's going to do it for us. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, as a board member of the trust, I totally agree. I'm fully behind and excited about the pledge. So yes, sometimes when there isn't a seat at the table, just like make your own seat kind of thing. You just, I don't think that's the phrase, but like you know what I mean? Like, do it for yourself. It's exactly what you just said. I've ruined it. Somebody has asked a question for George. Are Newcastle fans too reactionary? 2 wins in a row, nothing to be happy about when it cements a more Ashley Bruce post-truth anti-competitive pseudo football club?
I don't think they're too reactionary. I think there's just a lot of relief that the worst hasn't happened. I mean, if what Danielle is saying there, would it kind of be better for the club in the long run to get sort of relegated? I don't know. It's very difficult to sort of make that, to make that claim. I feel a sense of relief just because the club probably won't go down. I think that would be difficult. I think that would be difficult for the club. I think it would be very difficult to bounce back this time. I don't think anybody's saying that this is the answer. I don't think that's the case. I think it's just been a bit of a kind of exhalation of breath. I mean, if you do take a step back and look at the bigger picture, then what are we setting ourselves up for? Probably more of the same. I mean, I think that's a fair thing, and that is profoundly depressing within the context of the past few weeks and months. I was at Brighton. I thought, that to me felt like Newcastle were relegated that night, and it was a very long way to go. It was awful. It felt like the end. It felt like the end for Bruce. I didn't necessarily think he would go, but it felt like the end, and I didn't think that they would bounce back in the way they have. I'm very pleased that they have. Do I think that I see sort of green shoots of sort of long-term recovery? No, I don't. I think we're destined for more of the same.
That's an upbeat answer.
Sorry.
No, not at all. It's the truth. I want you to speak your truth. We're kind of jumping all over the place a little bit with our questions and stuff. And
it's all right.
I do kind of want to keep talking about the pledge because I'm excited about the pledge and you're a guardian of it. And I will ask you what I've asked I'll ask you that now. I asked you what I asked Ian and I asked Warren. What did you think when you were approached about it? Why did you say yes?
So my first response is probably the same response that a lot of people have had. It would be, that's a waste of time. That's pie in the sky. It's never going to happen. Well, this is a long time ago now. So this is the first conversation I had with Alex Hurst was, I just can't see that happening. I think the longer that the time has gone on, and we've talked about it more, I think the more difficult things have become at Newcastle. I've gone full circle. I think it's just a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer that we should try and do it. It's certainly a no-brainer for me to be involved. I just think that you look at what other clubs have been through. You look at all those worst-case scenarios, and if that was to happen to Newcastle, and it's not beyond the realms of possibility, I think we all know that we have a safety net. I just think that's sensible. But I'm also, I believe to my core in fan ownership. I believe in that. I believe that we should have a say in what happens at our clubs. That doesn't mean deciding, who plays up front. It doesn't mean where the money gets spent. It doesn't mean choosing who the manager is, but it does mean having a stake in the club. And I feel this so profoundly because that is what we've lost at Newcastle. It's very, very difficult to walk into St James's. Well, it's impossible for people to walk into St James's at the minute, but it's impossible to walk in and feel that sense of belonging and that sense of love and that sense of knowing that this is part of you and you're part of them and all of that kind of stuff. It's a very cold, transactional football club now, and I want to, which is ridiculous. It's ridiculous and it's horrible. They should be the best of us. We should be absolutely part of them. And I think we've seen the last year. I mean, it's hilarious. I've kind of had this romantic notion in my head that the last year without fans, which has been awful, and I'm lucky enough to have gone to St James's during the pandemic, but equally I've hated every time I've been there because I just can't feel anything. And so it's reminded, and I love the building, I love the stadium and I love the green of the pitch. I love all those things, but without anybody else there, I just don't feel anything. And so for me, it's become quite obvious that it's not about what those 11 lads are doing in a black and white shirt in the mid distance. That, when I've seen a good Newcastle team, of course I love it, but it's about the reaction and it's about the feeling that you're part of something. And so this is my opportunity. This is my chance to be part of something that makes me feel like we have a club again, and a club. It's a collection of people brought together for a common cause. I think this is not a bad cause to have. And so I'm a strong believer in it. The response so far has blown me away. When I was asked to be a guardian, I was very emotional, very proud. I've written so much negative stuff about the club over the past 10, 14 years. Here's a chance to do something positive, and I want to be part of something positive. It's just, and by the way, I've donated as well, and I think I fucked up my direct debit the first time, but I will certainly be donating on a monthly basis as well, because I want to put my money where my mouth is as well.
Yeah, likewise. I don't know if it's clear from whenever I'm talking about it. I also have a monthly pledge set up. Like, I forced my parents to do that as well. I'm fully bought into this, quite literally as well as figuratively.
And it is sorry to interrupt, Charlotte. It's very rude. I mean, but everyone has to know that it's this is a long-term project. Can't be done in 6 months. Might not be done in 6 years. It might be this might be a long process. And it is going to be reliant on people, digging deep, not spending stuff that they can't afford, obviously. But it's the start. It's been a brilliant start. It's been really exciting. I think what's happened in the last week has just sort of captured the entire. It's captured the entire sort of ethos of sort of what we're trying to do and the reason for doing it, because you just can't trust these chances. These people are chances, and we have to be there.
Greedy. They're just so greedy. I can't get over the greed.
It's disgusting.
Jonesy says, well said, George. The pledge has allowed me and my family to reconnect and feel good about the football club. I'm so pleased about that, Jonesy.
Great.
Likewise, I am reasonably active on Twitter, and there's quite often my Twitter is very much nufc Twitter. I follow lots of Newcastle fans and journalists and people like that, and it's funny. It's a funny place to be, but there's sometimes division, and there's there's often division, and people aren't as I don't know, but after we launched the pledge, overwhelmingly, of course, there are some people for whom this is not a goer. It's not their thing. Fine, that's fine. But it was just overwhelming positivity and unity and excitement, and I was so proud to be part of that, or to have played a really small part in getting it off the ground and sort of helping people come together in that way, because it's just a very exciting project to me. I'm very aware of the time, so I think I'm going to wrap things up Ian's still hanging around backstage. Ian, do you want to come back and say good night to everybody? Yeah, you do. Okay.
Hi, Ian.
Ian, you are muted though. So I'm just going to say thank you to Ian and to George and Warren, who has to go and live his American life. We get it. Thank you two so much for joining me this evening, talking a little bit about this mad week, about the 1892 pledge scheme, which is, I'm going to put it on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. It's 1892pledge.co.uk. If you are at all interested, if you have questions, get in touch. If you think, yeah, actually, I want to join the thousands of fans who have already pledged over £60,000 in 2 weeks, please do, because we are onto something quite exciting here, I think. So, so please get involved. George, thank you. Ian, thank you. And thank you all at home for watching. Take care and stay safe.
Good night. Good night.